Hello everybody, it's Saturday for you guys. Currently over here it is still Wednesday the 2nd of February. It's really busy here, by the way. My dad is in the hospital right now. He's not physically hurt. The thing is, he started wandering around one night and just around the house, and then after a while he got in the car for some reason and he started driving around, and he thought he was going to a certain town but headed in the opposite direction. Apparently, at least not the way that he should have gone if he really wanted to go somewhere. And he ended up driving in against traffic, so like ghost driving, I think they call that, ghost riding, ghost driving. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. In any case, it was not healthy and safe, so he got pulled over by a bunch of different police cars, actually. I think they encased him, is that what he said? And then forced him off the road. So the car got banged up, but he was perfectly fine, and when they got him out of the car, they were pretty much aware that, hey, this is just an older person who is a little bit lost, and we need to figure out what to do with him. So they took him to the hospital, and he went to the cardiology department. He's still there. And they had a bunch of tests done, and I don't know what the results were of that necessarily, because when I ask him, I get all sorts of answers, but not, I think, the correct one, because he tends to not hear everything correctly. I don't think he's mentally really gone, if you know what I mean. Like, he can still have normal conversations and stuff like that, but his hearing is going bad, and his eyesight is also kind of failing. Not super bad yet, but not good enough to drive. And apparently he sometimes has this spell, apparently, where he just goes and does weird things. And so they were like, okay, you probably shouldn't be driving anymore. And he thought, okay, well, if I'm not allowed to drive anymore, at least I can just go home, and then I'll take a taxi whenever I need to go someplace. Or there's these different taxi services you can rent, and sometimes you have to share with different people, so it's not super expensive, but you do have to wait for them to arrive and stuff like that. So he thought he would just be going home to just continue to live independently and then just go off and do his own thing. But yesterday I called him to ask, because he was going to have a specialist come over around 11 in the morning to talk about the results of his tests. And so I called him at about 2, something along those lines, to see if he knew anything more, like what was going on. And he was talking about how they were indeed going to take his driving away, and they were going to, I guess, ask him to come to some other place. Let me rephrase that. So they were going to allow him to go home, is what he was thinking. And then one condition would be that he would have to go to some other place in the evening to spend the night there. That's what he was talking about. And I don't think that's something that would happen unless somebody is coming over to pick him up or something like that. Because if you have somebody that tends to wander around, even if they're not allowed to drive, they can still wander around on foot or get on a bus and just don't know where they're headed and stuff like that. So that sounded a little bit strange. And he was talking about how they were going to give him a contract for that to sign, and that he was going to read that with his girlfriend, and they were going to decide between them if they really wanted to sign that or not, if that was something that they wanted. And I think he thought that if he refused to sign this contract for this arrangement, that he would just, like, nothing would happen, aside from the fact that he wouldn't be allowed to drive anymore, so he could just live independently and just do his own thing. So I thought that was a strange story, so I went and contacted the actual staff at the hospital, called them, and at first they were like, oh, you're not the first person, or at least there's like a first in line contact type of deal, and if they're not really sure who you are, they're not sure if they can tell you anything about what's going on with a certain patient, which is of course fine. But after I explained that that was my dad, they said, okay, well, what he probably means by the contract is we have a transfer team, and they're going to go talk to him about being transferred to like an institution of some sort, like I don't know what type of institution, whether it's like full on living in a home with a bunch of nurses, or if you have your own separate space and then people just come to check up on you a couple of times a day, something along those lines, somewhere along that type of thing. So they were going to discuss the terms with him. That was the idea. And I guess that the person, the specialist who was talking to him, was like, oh, you have to sign some type of contract or something, which made my dad think, oh, I can get out of this, which I don't think is the case. But I haven't called him yet today to see what's going on, and this car is being parked very aggressively. There's a business across the street where they sell secondhand cars, and some of the guys that work there, they are convinced that they're super cool drivers, so they tend to park cars in a way that normal people wouldn't if it wasn't, or if it was their car, because you might actually damage it. But okay, that's a different story. So, the idea from the hospital point of view is that he's either going to go into some type of care situation right away, or he's going to be allowed to live at home with extra care to make sure he doesn't do this again. But it's not like he's going to go fully independent again and we'll just leave it at that. It's just not how it's going to work, because he's proven with this little trip of his in the middle of the night, mind you, that he's just not capable of living fully independent anymore, because anything could happen basically. And also for my brother and I, that would be a lot better, because that means there's going to be at least somebody there to check up on him, well, probably a couple of times a day to see how he's doing, if he needs anything, etc. Which of course we weren't able to do because we have our jobs and stuff like that. And honestly, he is extremely stubborn, and he probably wouldn't want us to fawn over him anyways. So if somebody who doesn't know fawns over him, I guess that's okay. Or at least he'll not be as upset with that, because the last thing he wants is to be treated like some type of invalid, because he's always been very independent and he kind of wants to stay that way. So that's why he's like really upset with this idea of being put in some type of home. When we went to visit him last Sunday, he actually said at some point like, well, I've never needed any type of care, so why would I need it now, that type of thing. So, you know, when you hit a certain age, you feel like you're still capable of living by yourself, and part of you probably realizes this is not the case. But yeah, you need to at one point to give up your driver's license and stuff like that, and I understand that that's a huge chunk of freedom that you're giving away. I'm certainly not looking forward to that day either, when I have to give up my driver's license, and in that sense also part of your mobility or your mobility freedom, etc. But for your own safety and other people on the road, it is the best thing to do. And he certainly doesn't feel old enough to go into a home, but he's just not there anymore to be able to do that himself. Like the whole thing, like he was talking about how he can still do the laundry and do his own hygiene stuff and the household things all just fine, didn't need any help with that. But that's not really the point. It's more that his mind is starting to fail him, and even though he still has a lot of very bright periods, there's just there's this risk involved, and that's why he needs to go into some type of care, or at least has to have somebody come over a couple of times a day to check on him to make sure he's okay. Well, like I said, that would be better for my brother and I as well, so we know that at least if something happens, somebody's going to find him at some point during the day. And also we might actually be able to visit him a little bit more, I think. Because now there's this situation with his girlfriend, and a while back I made a video, quite a while back actually, about what type of person she is, and she has not changed, and we've not changed our opinion on her. Pretty much everybody who knows my dad, his own brothers included, have talked to her by now, and they're all like, oh my god, she's crazy. And one of my uncles actually said, like, I used to go visit them in the beginning when he had just moved out to this new place as a result of being kicked out by his previous girlfriend, whom he cheated on, stuff like that. So he's been doing weird things the last couple of years anyway. But okay, so my uncle's like, yeah, I used to go there in the early days, so to speak, like a year ago or something. But after having seen her a few times, he understood that she was crazy, and he stopped visiting as well. So my brother and I are definitely not the only ones who see this. So that's good to know that other people are also aware of this, and that we're not just making things up, because sometimes, you know, people will think like, oh, your father's with somebody new, and of course you're loyal to your mother, and that means you're probably automatically not going to like whomever he starts to date because you're jealous or something. I don't know, something along those lines. But those people don't understand that my dad actually had a very stable relationship with another woman for about 17 years, and we were perfectly okay with that. At least I was, at least. I considered them family and stuff like that, and then through my father's fault, that ended. And then he was alone for quite some time, and initially when he was talking to me about this new woman that he was seeing, I hadn't met her yet, but I was like happy for him, like, oh, somebody's going to be there for him, he's going to have somebody to grow old with and stuff like that, or at the very least have a friend that he can hang out with and do stuff with. But then I met her, and I was like, oh no, this is not a good thing. So, but my dad still thinks she's awesome, even though everybody around him thinks that she's not. So that's a further complication of the situation, because she's also filling his head with all sorts of nonsense. She's been telling him pretty much from the start that she doesn't want another old sick man, because she always keeps telling him that he's old and sick, even though she does keep trying to hang out with him. She keeps telling him how bad he is at things, how old, how feeble and feeble-minded as well, and putting all sorts of ideas in his head that he would not have had if she hadn't been in the picture. I think he would have mentally been better off right now if he had not met her, because she really does break people down, and that's why people stop seeing them. Also because it's really sad to see somebody go through that, because, you know, I've known my dad, of course, since the start of my own life, so I've known him to be this really independent person, and nobody could actually fool him or make him do anything that he didn't want to do. And ever since he's been with her, it's like the complete opposite, and he shaved off the mustache that he's had for pretty much his entire life, and it was really weird. And he started basically being this groveling old man that she kept describing him as being, even though he wasn't that initially. I mean, physically he had some issues with his legs, because he's always had like, arthritis or something in one of his legs, and one of his arteries had shut. So he had issues with that he was seeing the physiotherapist for, and stuff like that. So physically he was going backwards a bit. His eyesight was going down, even though he's very stubbornly not admitting that. And also his hearing was failing, but mentally he was still pretty strong, and that's been going very quickly, and I'm pretty sure it would have gone eventually, because I'm sure that he would have started getting more things as the years passed, so to speak, but he wouldn't have gone so quickly, I think. So we'll have to wait and see what the transfer team says, and whether he's actually able to process that, because I think he is stubbornly believing still that he might be able to get out of this. And eventually he'll have to go, because the way they told it to me is like, okay, we're going to try and find him a spot, and if there isn't a spot available yet, then he can go back home, but then he'll have to get extra care, so it's not like he's going to get away from this. He's not going to slip through the cracks, so to speak. So hopefully that'll come to some type of positive conclusion. At least he'll have some care, somebody to look after him every day, just to check in on him and make sure he's all right. Editing the video, and there is an update. I called him the day after to see how he was doing, because he was supposed to be released home the day afterwards, and he was indeed home when I called. His girlfriend was there, and they informed me, or rather she informed me, because he was too busy eating, I suppose. They were having a burger and fries, very healthy by the way, that she had spent so much time at his house cleaning everything and fixing things up, and trying to contact us for advice, leaving all sorts of voicemail messages, according to her. My brother got absolutely 0 calls from her. I got 1 voicemail, so that's her idea of constantly trying to get us on the phone and stuff like that. And also, for somebody who was supposedly looking for advice from us, she didn't ask me a single question, so that's great. Anyway, so the idea now from her part is that he will stay home, and he's gonna have a few care workers come over a couple times a day to at least check on him and check that he's taking his medication. And in the weekends, he's gonna go to her place and stay there. So, and of course he's not allowed to drive, so he has to go and be picked up and dropped off and stuff like that, which also gives her more power over him, but I don't know how that's going to work out. On the other end, my brother and I are like, okay, we'll try to visit him sometime during the week then, because we don't want to have to talk to her at all, because she's super annoying, like I said. And my uncle as well is like, okay, I'll try to go by at some point in the next month or so, and pick a weekday when she's not actually sitting there on the couch, because nobody wants to talk to her, which is interesting. Anyway, so if something does happen again with him, he will have to go through a permanent care home. She does actually admit that, because the whole reason why she said she wanted it this way is because she doesn't believe that he has dementia, even though earlier in the call she said they concluded that he has dementia. So she's not a medical expert, she has 0 medical knowledge, so I'm a little bit upset with her, as you might be able to tell. So right now we're just waiting to see what happens and how he handles himself at home right now. And he's definitely still not looking forward to going to a care home, but he might have no choice. As soon as something goes wrong, he'll have no choice, he has to go, because he can't take care of himself, and this situation will not work. So that was a little update, and now back to the original video, which I was about to wrap up anyway, but I just wanted to give you guys an update. In any case, hope you guys are doing well. Me personally, I'm doing fine, so that's a plus, I guess, and we'll have to wait and see. And it's also a plus that I reconnected with my uncles, because we weren't really talking much before. Not that we had an issue with each other, but more like we never really saw my dad's side of the family after my parents divorced. And so after a long time, my uncles actually didn't even recognize me anymore because it had been like 30 years or something, and he just kind of, he knows that I'm the daughter and accepts that he's my uncle and stuff like that, but he still refers to my eldest uncle as his brother, not your older uncle. So I'm kind of like on the outside, but somehow connected still. And now we're texting each other pretty much every day about the situation, so at least we have some connection there, so that's good. That is it for today. Like I said, I hope you're doing well. In any case, make sure to stay safe and all that sort of thing. I'll see you in another stream or whatever other video you might be watching next. And thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.